dreamer, but my heart's of gold. I had a runaway.
Welcome to HECM Health and Wealth. I'm Kimberly. I'm so glad you're here with me today as we dive into how to truly flex your financial and physical muscles. Before we get started, if you're a regular viewer and you love what we do here, please take a moment to check if you've hit that subscribe button at Q&A with Kim and Ray on YouTube. It's a simple, free way to help us keep bringing you this education, and I promise to keep fighting harder every single month to bring you the conversations you want to hear. Now remember, what we share here is based on personal experience and opinion. It's for informational purposes, so always seek qualified professional guidance for your unique situation. Today, I want to talk about a turning point in human history. There's a moment a lot of people hit in retirement planning where the spreadsheets stop feeling like numbers and start feeling like life. A move, a diagnosis, a spouse saying, "What if we need this money later?" And right around then, a term comes up that still makes plenty of people tense. Reverse mortgage. Today, we're clearing the air, not with hype, not with fear, but with a real look at what modern reverse mortgages are, how the conversation is shifting, and why the old just pay cash for the house advice might not be the slam dunk it sounds like, especially if you're trying to protect flexibility in retirement. And we're going to do it with stories and strategy, because this topic has both. On the one hand, there's the stigma. People hear reverse mortgage and jump straight to that as too good to be true. On the other hand, there's a fast-growing group of older buyers making very intentional decisions about liquidity, taxes, health costs, and how long their money needs to last.
So let's set the scene with something we keep hearing. Reverse mortgages are a scam. That phrase spreads fast. It's emotional, it's protective, and honestly, it's understandable. People have heard horror stories. Some real, some exaggerated, some based on older product versions, and some based on plain misinformation. If you're a homeowner or a family member trying to help, the impulse is to shut it down. But experts who live in this world say the best move is the opposite. Don't escalate, don't argue, just slow things down and stick to facts.
Because the modern reverse mortgage, especially the FHA-insured home equity conversion mortgage, the HECM, is a regulated tool. It has rules, disclosures, counseling requirements. It's not a back alley product. It's more like a specialized kind of mortgage designed for a specific life stage. And the scam label often comes from mixing up three different things. 1. Bad actors who might pressure seniors. Those exist in every financial category. 2. Misunderstanding the basics, like thinking the bank takes your house automatically. And 3. Confusing the purpose, assuming it's only for people in crisis.
Which is exactly where the conversation is changing. For years, reverse mortgages were mostly discussed as refinances. You already own the home, you've got a mortgage payment, and the reverse mortgage replaces that forward mortgage payment. That's the classic pitch. Improve monthly cash flow, reduce outflows, unlock equity, but the market now is forcing a broader conversation. Because older homeowners aren't all trying to solve the same problem. A lot of them are trying to make a smart move. Downsizing, relocating, right-sizing for retirement, moving closer to family, moving away from stairs, buying something that fits the next chapter. And that's where a hidden buyer market starts to emerge. People who can buy, but don't know what the best way to buy is. It is one of the biggest untapped opportunities in reverse mortgage lending right now. Not because these buyers are broke, because they're cautious. They're sitting on the sidelines trying to figure out how to protect the retirement plan they've spent decades building. Here's what's so interesting. Many of these buyers could technically pay cash for their next home. They have equity, they have retirement assets, they can do it. But can and should are two very different questions.
And the new retirement age buyer is asking different questions than buyers used to ask. Not, can I buy this house? But how do I avoid draining my savings to buy it? You hear questions like, how do I keep my cash available for emergencies? What if healthcare gets expensive? What if markets drop right after I move? What if I need to help my kids or grandkids? What if I live longer than I planned for? And then there's the day-to-day question, how do I improve cash flow without locking myself into a new required mortgage payment? That's a huge deal in retirement where a paycheck might be replaced by Social Security, distributions, and investment income. This is where purchase financing with a reverse mortgage, HECM for purchase, starts to matter. It's a way some retirees buy a home with a large down payment, but without taking on mandatory monthly mortgage payments the way a traditional mortgage requires. And the central idea is liquidity. Paying all cash feels safe because you're avoiding debt. But it can quietly create a different kind of risk. You've moved a big pile of usable money into a place you can't easily access without selling or borrowing again later. Exactly. A house is valuable, but it's not grocery money. It's not write a check tomorrow for a medical bill money. And retirees don't just face normal expenses, they face unpredictable ones.
Yet, even with the relevance growing, purchase transactions are still a small slice of the HECM for purchase or the line of credit relock world.
But here's the twist. Some independent mortgage banks and groups that integrate reverse options into normal mortgage conversations, meaning they don't treat it like a weird side product. They are actually seeing purchase increases.
So it's not that the product can't do the job, it's that the market isn't fully connecting the dots. In human terms, awareness, trust, education, and confidence to execute. Not just knowing what the product is, but being able to explain it, coordinate it, and make everyone feel steady. Because to do this well, you have to shift from a one-product conversation to something bigger. Housing strategy, retirement strategy, and emotional reality all in the same room.
And if you don't step into that role, the risk isn't just losing deals, it's leaving clients underserved, because they'll default to the simplest idea they know: pay cash, avoid debt. Even when that choice creates long-term fragility.
That's a bold benchmark, but it's really a challenge. Are you even having the right hope and pray way? Or are you waiting until something goes wrong and then trying to find a rescue plan? Which brings us to the part that rarely gets handled well. Connection. Numbers matter. Rules matter. But people don't make retirement housing decisions strictly on math. They make them on fear, hope, family history, and what they think could go wrong. There's a story that cuts through the noise. It starts with a grandfather.
Her grandfather moved out of his home to free up money for retirement. On paper, it sounds practical. Sell the house, reduce responsibility, simplify. But then life happened. In his apartment, he took a fall. He broke his neck. The next 6 months were brutal. Screws in his skull to stabilize him, a huge impact on his mental state. And Sue watched what that did to him and to the family.
That kind of experience rewires the way you think about best decisions. Because suddenly the question isn't just did the move make financial sense, it's did it protect him when the unexpected arrived?
Later, Sue worked with a client named Cindy. Cindy's husband received a serious health diagnosis, one of those moments that makes your whole future feel shaky. And Cindy was given a home equity strategy that helped protect her ability to stay stable. Christina describes a moment where Cindy hugged her, and she could feel the relief in her body. Not excitement, relief. The feeling of, okay, we can handle what's coming. And Sue had this realization: Cindy could stay in her home for the rest of her life. And she thought, if her grandfather had known the options back then, would his story have turned out differently?
You start by showing you understand what's at stake. You need to translate fear into clarity. Learn how to talk about this without setting off alarms. Which blends into another theme we heard recently from Midkiff, who talks about mindset like a cybernetic mechanism. Think of the mind like a thermostat. It self-regulates toward whatever goals and beliefs are programmed into it. Meaning, when circumstances change, most people react. Rates move, the market shifts, business slows, a client panics, and the professional gets pulled into the emotion. But he argues the controllable lever is perspective. Not pretending everything is fine, just deciding what story you tell yourself so you can act consistently instead of impulsively. And he warns about getting swallowed by outside pressures, rates, markets, performance, while neglecting health, family, balance. Ironically, that's the same lesson retirees are learning. Don't optimize one part of the plan so hard that you break the rest.
Consistency came up again and again. Not bursts of motivation, repetition, habits, identity, emotional discipline, daily self-talk. It's professional advice, but it's also retirement advice. Now, zooming out, this isn't happening in a vacuum. Home equity is increasingly central to retirement planning, and the headlines are basically shouting it. We have new data that shows equity growth is cooling. Adam reported that the share of equity-rich homeowners dropped to its lowest level since 2021. In early 2026, about 43.3% of mortgaged homes were equity-rich, meaning owners owed no more than half the property value. That's down from the prior quarter and down from a year earlier. At the same time, seriously underwater homes ticked up to 3.2%. Still not a crisis number, but it signals normalization after years of unusually rapid price gains.
And yet, even with moderation, the total housing wealth in America is still enormous. In certain states, Vermont, New Hampshire, Montana, Rhode Island, Hawaii, the concentration of equity-rich owners is especially high.
For older homeowners, that means there's still plenty of wealth sitting in the walls. But the window for using it strategically might not be infinite. Right, the conversation becomes less, look at this record equity, and more, how do we plan before the market or life narrows our choices? The New York Times added another layer. Retirees might be overestimating how much usable money their home will generate later. Americans 70 and older hold something like $13 trillion in housing wealth.
But a Federal Reserve Bank of Philadelphia study suggests older sellers often get lower sale prices than younger sellers. An 80-year-old may receive around 5% less than a 45-year-old for similar homes. And the reasons are painfully human: deferred maintenance, outdated presentation, physical limitations, or just urgency. Some people accept a lower offer because they want the stress to end. They're not maximizing price, they're minimizing anxiety.
Which means housing wealth on paper isn't the same as accessible retirement capital in real life. And waiting until you're forced into a quick sale or a health crisis often reduces options.
Add on what's happening in senior housing. It's booming as an investment category. Fortune highlighted transaction volume around $24 billion through the end of 2025, the strongest in a decade. Investors see the demographic wave coming.
Because the 80-plus population is projected to surge over the next decade, and we're still living in the era of 10,000 people turning 65 every day. But affordability is getting tight. Limited new development after COVID, rising occupancy, rising rents. Average senior housing rents now over $5,000 per month, up nearly 29% from pre-COVID levels.
That hits what some call the forgotten middle: retirees who make too much for assistance, but not enough to comfortably pay premium senior living costs.
Many everyday retirees are looking at those monthly numbers and thinking, we may need to stay put longer than we expected. Which puts aging in place, strategies, accessibility upgrades, cash flow management, home equity planning, front and center.
And then there's the classic retirement fork in the road: age in place or downsize. Barron's recently pointed out how much harder this decision has gotten. Higher mortgage rates, high prices, taxes, moving costs, and limited inventory mean downsizing doesn't automatically free up the money people assume it will. But staying has its own issues: maintenance, retrofits, healthcare needs, and the constant question of, how do we fund this for 10, 20, maybe 30 years?
That's why one-size-fits-all advice fails. Retirees increasingly need flexibility, not slogans. Even affluent retirees are part of this shift. Kiplinger noted that higher net worth households are looking more seriously at home equity tools within broader retirement planning, not necessarily because they're desperate, but because they want smoother access and less friction in the plan.
That's a big change in how these products are being framed. The future isn't just about pricing, it's about simplicity, flexibility, and how cleanly the strategy fits into a wealth plan.
And then there's the pressure on income. Social Security COLAs might rise. Estimates suggest around 3.9% in 2027, but many retirees still feel squeezed. The Senior Citizens League says Social Security has effectively lost close to 14% of buying power since 2016 because the adjustments don't fully match seniors' real expenses, which leads to the unavoidable conclusion: housing wealth is becoming a bigger piece of retirement sustainability. Not optional, not fringe, central.
Here's a quote that will stick: "Friends don't let friends pay cash for their house." It makes people laugh at first, and then it makes them pause, because it challenges a deeply held belief that cash is always the safest choice. It isn't that cash is bad, it's that converting too much cash into illiquid home equity can create vulnerability, especially when retirement is a long game and life can change quickly.
And this matters because of the demographic trends highlighted. According to NAR data, Americans aged 60 and over now represent nearly half of the home buying market. That is massive. It means retirement housing isn't a niche category anymore. It's what's driving a huge chunk of transactions.
So walking through the real comparison: paying cash, taking a traditional mortgage, or using a HECM for purchase. The question becomes, which one best supports the retirement plan you're trying to live inside of?
Because preserving liquidity isn't just about comfort. It can affect everything: how you manage taxes, how you respond to emergencies, how you invest, and how resilient you are if the next decade doesn't follow your assumptions.
Going into how these conversations are becoming more sophisticated, including case studies that touch on IRA, required minimum distributions, and scenarios where deductible reverse mortgage interest might matter. And this is the part where we need to be clear: anything tax-related has to be reviewed with qualified tax and financial professionals. The value here isn't kitchen table tax advice. The value is understanding that housing finance can interact with tax planning, and that's why collaboration matters.
Also highlighting the longer-term planning angle, like how a HECM line of credit can function as a tool in a broader retirement strategy. Again, not magic, not a cure-all, but a lever if used thoughtfully. So when someone says, "Isn't this a scam?" one helpful response is, let's talk about what problem you're trying to solve. If the problem is flexibility, if the problem is cash flow, if the problem is reducing required payments, then it deserves a calm, factual conversation. And if someone says, but debt is dangerous, the answer might be, sometimes, but so is running out of liquid assets while sitting in a paid-off house. Because retirees don't experience these decisions as separate buckets. They don't say, now I'll think about housing and later I'll think about healthcare. It's all one life. And the market signals suggest this hidden buyer group won't stay hidden. People are going to keep moving in retirement, whether to be closer to family, to simplify their homes, or to adapt to aging. The only question is whether they'll have the guidance to do it without accidentally weakening their financial stability. So here's where we land. Reverse mortgages are not a one-size solution, and they're not for everyone, but the modern conversation is bigger than last resort. It's about strategy, timing, and protecting options. And it's also about trust. Facts matter, but stories open the door. Once the door is open, education can happen. And once education happens, a retiree can make a decision that's based on reality, not stigma. If you're a homeowner listening, consider this your prompt. Before you default to pay cash or never touch equity, ask what you're really optimizing for. Convenience? Peace of mind? Flexibility? Legacy? Monthly cash flow? Healthcare readiness? A plan you help design a path. Please subscribe at IamHealthyMoney.com. It would mean so much more than you know. I will continue to bring you fascinating subjects with all the research so you don't have to do it all alone. We will learn together, and then wait until the end of each video for a sneak peek into the next research project. Life has its ups and downs, but you're not alone.
From 10 to 110, we're in this together, right here, right now.
We love ya.
Sweet home.